In 2013, a pair of entrepreneurs in Central California launched an incubator for technology startups with three goals in mind: to provide opportunities for young intellectual talent, to slow the brain drain from the region, and to raise the bar for diversity, equity, and inclusion that were lacking elsewhere in the tech community.
What is Bitwise? We're glad you asked. Bitwise is a tech ecosystem that activates human potential to lift up underdog cities around the country.
We have a lot of underserved and overlooked talent in the heart of the state, and we have been able to prove folks coming from that story are just as likely to succeed in the technology industry and help us rebuild this economy as anyone else.
And not only have we gotten to do really extraordinary work here in Fresno, but we've gotten to see that work expand to places like Bakersfield, Merced, Oakland, and Toledo.
Hundreds of employees are now without jobs and wondering what's next. That's after the tech incubator Bitwise Industries announced it is furloughing its entire workforce.
Today, my office is announcing the filing of federal criminal charges alleging that Ms. Olguin Jr. and Mr. Soberal, starting at the latest in January 2022, conspired to commit wire fraud.
No sorry, nothing. Your family.
Jake Soberal, an ambitious young attorney and software engineer, Irma Olguin Jr., believed that technology startups could diversify the region's business landscape and that training would-be tech workers could feed the local industry.
The Fresno Bee reached out to both Jake Soberal and Irma Olguin, asking if they'd be willing to be interviewed for this podcast. Neither of them responded. Here's Jake Soberal from a 2019 interview with the Fresno Bee.
Bitwise Industries is a technology ecosystem that is designed to make it possible for cities like Fresno and Bakersfield to participate in the opportunity that exists in the technology industry. And what that looks like is providing a ramp into the industry for the people in that city.
Here's Irma Olguin from a 2016 interview with the Fresno Bee.
I think when you grow up the way that I did, you see your life as a specific way. And college is often, for folks like myself and many of my peers, not a part of the plan. So when you find yourself in a position where that might be a possibility, you have to adjust yourself to a new way of thinking. How do you choose a major? What does it look like to not live at home?
What was the lure of Bitwise for the Fresno region? Fresno is not surrounded by a broader metropolitan area. Rather, it is the de facto capital of the central San Joaquin Valley, a rich agricultural region of vineyards, fruit and nut orchards, vegetable crops, dairies, and pastures. The economy of the region is dominated by farming, and much of the employment is in notoriously low-wage industries: farm labor, hospitality and food service, and retail. The rates of poverty and unemployment are higher than California as a whole, and median pay and educational attainment are lower than the state average. Bitwise Industries captured the imagination of the Fresno community with its audacious plans and aggressively promoted their dream of a mothership of technology education, collaboration, and innovation to city leaders and whoever else would listen, including development partners, investors, lenders, and their own employees. But 10 years later, after expanding to other cities in California and across the U.S., the Bitwise dream collapsed amid a financial implosion that abruptly left hundreds of people out of work, cost investors tens of millions of dollars, and ultimately led to convictions on federal charges for Soberal and Olguin.
I'm Bob Rodriguez.
And I'm Tim Sheehan. And this is the story of Bitwise and Betrayal, inside the fraud scandal that shook Fresno. For 2 years, Bitwise Industries and its cadre of upstart technology tenants, as well as its GeekWise Academy training classes, were shoehorned into a nondescript building at the northern fringe of downtown Fresno. More space was desperately needed, and that's how local developer Will Dyke comes into the picture. Bitwise needed a development partner to rehabilitate a historic downtown building. Dyke had already worked to renovate old downtown Fresno warehouses into office space for government agencies and other clients. For Dyke, the partnership with Bitwise was pretty much just another real estate deal.
I first met Jake Soberal through an introduction through a structural engineer. Brooks Ransom is a well-known engineering firm here in town. The Bitwise group, in their infancy, had purchased a building at 700 Van Ness and gotten a little bit over the skis. And, like any good technologist, they Googled what a tenant improvement was, and it said $40 a square foot in 90 days. And then got into the reality of what they had gotten themselves into as far as a 1918, 50,000 foot, 3-story, unreinforced, historical, complete rehab building. And so they needed a partner. The structural engineer introduced us. I kind of got the idea of what Bitwise was trying to do as far as the real estate went, and said, okay, this is just like the buildings that we've done. And said, okay, we could explore a joint venture and do something together. And we ultimately delivered that building about 3 years later and about $6.5 million later.
Jake Soberal went to high school in Clovis, a Fresno suburb, and earned a bachelor's degree in history and political science from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. After graduating from UNC in 2008, Soberal went to law school, earning a law degree in 2011 from the Western State College of Law in Southern California. By early 2012, he landed a job with a Fresno law firm focusing on business litigation and intellectual property.
Soberal and Olguin first connected in 2012 as he did some legal work on intellectual property for Olguin. A year later, they joined forces to establish Bitwise Industries, with Shift3 Technologies as its software development arm and Geekwise Academy as its education and training branch.
Here's Irma Olguin from a 2021 interview with CNBC.
90% or more of the folks who come through our programs stay in their hometowns. And that's important because those are dollars that are being spent in their local community and tax base. Those are homes that are being bought. Those are cars that are being driven in those underestimated cities rather than building and exporting talent to other primary markets. That's not really the goal here. And so when we build these aspirational places that are exciting to be in for entrepreneurs and for technologists, it causes people to imagine the best version of their lives being lived out there. It also creates community around leveling up entry-level talent.
Valley native Jen Garab had been living in the Bay Area for more than 20 years running a massage therapy business, but she was looking for a change and a new opportunity. She was also missing her family in Kingsburg, so she decided to move back home. She was happy with her new life until COVID-19 happened, and she was forced to pivot her career, leading her to Bitwise.
When I first moved back here, I was driving down Van Ness, and I saw this building that we're in. And I thought, what is this? This reminds me of San Francisco, because I was out there working on all the tech companies. I remember coming downstairs and talking to one of the front desk people about what's going on here. And she says, a tech company. I'm like, oh, wow. She's like, oh, yeah, we do classes and this and that. So I thought, it just implanted something in my brain. And then I started coming to Bitwise events. Like, they would host Art Hop. They would have concerts. So I would just show up, and I met a lot of nice people. I had an app idea for my business, my massage business, and I called up Bitwise. We were kind of in the talks, and then all of a sudden the COVID thing happened in March, and then I realized, oh my goodness, I can't do massage anymore. So that really freaked me out, and I'd been doing that for 20 years, So then I just, first thing I thought of was Bitwise. Would you hire a displaced massage therapist? I don't really have tech experience, but I'm willing to learn and all this stuff. And he's like, well, give me a week and I'll let you know. So then a week came by and he said, yeah, here's Irma's post. She's hiring 100 people. Go there and just apply. So I did. I applied. I begged for a job. I was really scared. I'm also helped my parents. Yeah, sure enough, I was hired.
While training and hiring people like Jen Guerra for technology jobs was a big piece of the Bitwise vision, another component was developing space and infrastructure for tech startups and entrepreneurs. It needed to attract tenants to its building, and one of the earliest of those was a company called Quick Labs.
Quick Labs was founded in 2013 by Damon Thomas and Curlin Phipps, building on their previous experience in web development, multimedia, and graphic design since 2006. They initially focused on creating mobile websites and QR code solutions, which were innovative at the time, helping businesses reach mobile users more effectively. Their connection with Bitwise began through their participation in something called the 59 Days of Code, a competition co-founded by Irma Olguin.
59 Days of Code was a competition that allowed lots of web developers and creative people who write code to start coming up with ideas in 59 days. We heard about this competition and we decided to join this competition. And that was our first meeting and experience with Irma, who was one of the founders of Bitwise at that point, because she was also one of the founders of 59 Days of Code as well.
Irma Olguin Jr. grew up in the farming town of Carruthers, tucked among grape vineyards and fruit orchards about 15 miles south of Fresno. Olguin often cites her family's farm labor roots as she tells of becoming the first person from her family to attend college. She earned a degree in computer science and engineering from the University of Toledo in Ohio. After college, Olguin returned to the Fresno area and began teaching at a local technology high school. She also became a serial entrepreneur, starting several enterprises including #Fresno, a collaborative tech workspace, and a coding hackathon competition called 59 Days of Code.
At first, they wanted us to be tenants, especially hot off of the winning 59 Days of Code as Quick Labs. We didn't want to at first. It didn't make sense to us to share our intellectual property or have these ideas and things we're working on, and to actually be around other developers. It just seemed awkward and odd. So we said no in the beginning. And I think eventually Jake kind of pressed a few times, just like, we would love to have you guys in here. You guys are cool. We talked about it. And we're like, okay, we'll give it a try.
While the COVID-19 pandemic wreaked havoc on hundreds of local businesses in early 2020, Bitwise also closed its buildings, but kept its staff working remotely. The company also landed a contract with the state of California for the Onward California project, a website that served as one-stop clearinghouse of resources for people who lost their jobs to the pandemic. Jen Guerra was part of a large virtual team that worked on Onward California and later Onward projects for several other states across the country. Guerra describes the work as gratifying, giving her a sense of purpose during the pandemic.
March of 2020, I was in this project called Onward California. It was a website that supposedly offered resources for people that out of jobs, like job leads, maybe where to find money, where to find healthcare, all these things. So I was put in the virtual call center. And so there I was talking to people all over the country. I mean, mostly New York, because I think New York was really hit bad during that time. And just honestly, I felt like I was just like a therapist. I'm not a therapist, but, just trying to help people. And so, yeah, it felt very gratifying to be on that project because I felt like I was doing something. I was scared during that time, and we all were. That made me feel like I'm doing something about it. I'm being productive. I'm making money. I could support myself and my family, and I could do something like positive. And I was in this team with like all of a sudden like 900 people like on the Slack channel on and it felt really cool like to be part of that. And that is a really good memory for me during that time. If someone said, "What were you doing during COVID?" Well, I was doing that, and that was awesome.
Did you sometimes think it was too good to be true?
Yes. I always wondered, are they making money like during COVID? I mean, honestly, everybody's like going out of business and they're thriving. And I do remember they had a program where they would run around and give people groceries for free. That was amazing. I just felt like they were superheroes.
Jen Guerra's perceptions align with the overall atmosphere that Soberal and Olguin sought to develop at Bitwise from its earliest days, a Silicon Valley vibe and an ecosystem in which tech entrepreneurs could unite in common interests. This is Jake from a video for Bitwise Industries on YouTube.
Raising up of talent has catalyzed 200 technology companies in downtown Fresno. They've created 2,000 new technology jobs. We're trying to accelerate the growth of the technology industry in a way that lifts our city. And what is really, really important to us is that their demographics match the demographics of our county. So greater than 50% female, greater than 50% minority, and about 20% first generation.
The Quick Labs team, Damon Thomas and Curlin Phipps, were in the software business even before Bitwise was founded in 2013. But after the pair won the 59 Days of Code competition, they were recruited to move into the original cramped Bitwise building in Fresno's Mural District. Thomas and Phipps were initially hesitant to move into a shared space with other developers over concerns about their intellectual property. But eventually they were convinced to lease space in that first building. Over time, they appreciated the community of developers, sharing ideas and best practices, which helped create a supportive environment.
I think they created a lot of buzz and it attracted a lot of people. And I think the community formed very naturally. People felt like they belonged and they were a part of it. I mean, there was like the development part and then there's the whole education part. And so I think the intent of all of that stuff was all very good. It was very welcoming. You're with a whole bunch of developers. You guys speak the same language. You do the same stuff and you act the same way. So that was beautiful. Felt like even though it was just the two of us in our business in the beginning, you were part of a bigger organization or company because you would all see each other in the halls and eat together in common spaces. You're testing out and prototyping things and getting other people's opinions. So people would come into our office to, just to kind of hang out and PlayStation and do whatever also. So we had a fun space inside of their space as well. And it allowed us to host our own events in that space as well. That's true. And then the community comes to support that. So in the beginning, that was unintended, but really, it made the environment really fun to be around with all of the other companies that were in there. And then 59 Days of Code was still a thing. Yeah. So I was on the board of 59 Days of Code. So the relationship continued to stay established. It was really fun in the beginning, in a smaller space, and we're all connected. It was just really good.
We started in our hometown. The idea was to use tech to fix Fresno. It felt natural. Teach our neighbors to code, surround them with good places to work, and put all of it inside of a building everyone could be proud of. It feels like Bitwise could really matter in Fresno, and in Bakersfield, and in Merced. It feels like we can do something important, something that allows all of us to enjoy the best versions of our hometowns.
Hundreds of employees are now without jobs and wondering what's next. That's after the tech incubator Bitwise Industries announced it is furloughing its entire workforce.
Roger Bonactor has represented a number of different clients. Although he had limited business dealings with Bitwise, Bonactor didn't hesitate to represent the laid-off workers after hearing their stories of losing their jobs overnight. Bonactor filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of 100 furloughed workers.
I knew about as much about Bitwise as the community did. It seemed to be an enigma wrapped in a riddle. On the one hand, they were a tech company. On the other hand, they seemed to be some sort of a real estate startup. I had represented various folks that had worked for or with Bitwise over the years from the point of their inception to their collapse.
Well, what did you think of them?
To me, it didn't really make any sense how they operated. I didn't understand how they made money. I didn't understand how they grew, particularly at such a rate. I mean, I liked the idea that I saw investment in downtown. I liked some of the accolades that were coming along with them being here, but I didn't know much. And as it turns out, it seems like neither did they.
Bitwise Industries continued to raise its profile in Fresno and Central California. Beneath the surface, however, not all was as rosy as Bitwise leaders portrayed to the public and to its investors. The company went through several chief financial officers, and in the fall of 2020, the company received a notice of delinquency on personal property taxes. Apprentices purportedly brought on to learn technology were funneled into other functions, and for some, promised jobs never materialized.
Even some Bitwise employees, among the most fervent believers in the company's social mission of diversity and technology, started to take notice.
I think it was during my apprenticeship. I was in the Onward project that died down, and then I started taking classes. It's called Bitwise. So I took coding classes. I had to learn something. I had to pivot from massage, right? So I was doing that. And then in the class, I was asked to be in an apprenticeship. So I thought, okay. And they said it's a paid apprenticeship. And they put me in inside sales. That apprenticeship was only supposed to be for 6 months, but then it extended to a year and then a year and a half. And I was kind of like, when is this ever going to end? Because we were told that we were all going to be hired after we finish. And I did get a job. I did get hired. And but many people didn't. And it was promised to us all that all of us were going to be hired. But logically, I'm thinking, how is that possible? Did they really have, at that point, I think there was like 300, 400 apprentices, but they didn't hire all of them. They barely hired not that many. I got $100,000 sale during that time. And so I think because of that, I was hired.
What were you selling?
I was trying to sell tech consulting and to ad companies.
Yeah, and what were they consulting on?
Anything. Like, I mean, they were basically saying we can build, like apps, basically, agricultural. I mean, like anything like that. We were told, like, basically we can build anything. So we're like, okay, we can make you anything. So, and, I mean, for the most part, I think they did build stuff, but, obviously when it shut down, a lot of those projects were just left.
Here's attorney Roger Bonactor again.
As I've learned over the course of the year plus we've been fighting this case, year and a half, there was a deliberate and calculated effort to build almost a cult-like environment at Bitwise. The things that I would hear from these employees about their interactions with department leads and the existence of an evangelist, a Bitwise evangelist on the premises.
That was literally the title.
That was, in fact, the title. Evangelist. Was just, to be polite, baffling. I mean, it seems that they wanted a sense of religiosity, a sense of being a part of some grandiose movement. They wanted a wholehearted investment from their employees, which in some ways is admirable, right? I mean, I should hope that everyone who works at my office is wholeheartedly engaged in what we do and for all of my clients. But this was different. This was quite different, something I've never experienced representing employees or employers in my career.
Next on Bitwise and Betrayal, inside the fraud scandal that shook Fresno.
Some of these people that were their friends and family weren't even here, and they were on payroll. And so to me, what is that? That's like, what is it called? Like
nepotism?
Yeah.
The business model did not seem like something that was sustainable. And there was a big divide in the board at the time. Bitwise was going down a path of putting the social enterprise in the forefront and the business enterprise in the back seat.
The building is empty and no one's there. This whole cups of coffee were still, phones are still charging, things are still here, like people were supposed to come back.
I'm Tim Sheehan.
And I'm Bob Rodriguez.
Bitwise and Betrayal, inside the fraud scandal that shook Fresno, is a product of the Fresno Bee, a McClatchy publication based on original reporting by Tim Sheehan and Bob Rodriguez. It's produced by Lume Alasali, Bob Rodriguez, Tim Sheehan, Eric Zamora, and Craig Colris. Executive producers Jennifer Molina and Don Blunt. The podcast was edited by Jen Molina and Lume Alasali. Original music by Yves Buigues. Bitwise and Betrayal, Inside the Fraud Scandal That Shook Fresno, can be found on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.